Yes guys, welcome back to the YouTube. Today, got an exciting one for you. Got my leg day, my new leg day. It's going to be a little bit more powerlifting focused because again, my bench press training is going a bit more powerlifting focused, or my upper body training. I'm really focused on my bench press. So I thought, what better time to focus on my squat again? And it's been a while since I've done barbell squat. I had a wee taster session last week with it and it actually felt quite good, to be fair. I didn't really get too much hip pain. I hadn't been squatting for a while because I got this piriformis sort of hip pain going down my glute every time I got into a deep squat position, and it limited to me to doing certain variations of the squat like the hack squat or the pendulum squat or even a little bit of high bar squat. But I was mostly doing things like leg extensions, hamstring curls for my legs rather than squats, which is my favourite leg exercise. So this session is going to be 5 weeks out. So I put some photos up here on what I looked like yesterday after a high day. And honestly, that high day is what I needed to reinstill some confidence in my physique, because over the last couple of weeks I have waned a wee bit. Being able to have a high day, 500 grams of carbs, very low fat, moderate protein, and being able to see the difference in my physique, be able to see it come to life like that, it did reinstill a lot of confidence in where I'm at in this photo shoot prep. Just making my pre-workout right now. It's going to be 100 gram of cream of rice. So I've already cooked it up. It already has 10 grams of dark chocolate in it. But 100 gram cream of rice. I made this earlier. I chucked it in the fridge. You saw me making my whey paste right there. I'm going to be putting a banana on it. About 150 gram of berries. I've got this new sauce. So it's CaloFit, if you can see that. It's salted caramel, or salty caramel they call it. I think it's a German brand or a Dutch brand or something like that. I don't know, it's in German on the back. But it's 0 fat and 0 sugar. Per 15 milliliters, or 15 gram, 1 calorie. So quite nutty, and it tastes really, really good. Obviously with things like this, there's lots of artificial sweeteners, so you do want to limit them. You don't want to be putting 50 gram of that all over your food because it will impact your digestion. On a side note, I do have another one. So I think it's the same brand. They say authentic Dutch quality, so it's Dutch. But this is fancy garlic, so it's almost like a garlic sauce. Because I've obviously got the real thing here. So I've got the garlic sauce there, Turkish style, which is banging if you're in an off season. But this one is 50 per 15 milliliters. I think it's probably going to be the same. It's about 9 calories per 15 mil. So 15 gram around, probably. Maybe a little bit heavier, I would say. 9 calories, which is pretty unreal considering it's garlic sauce you're getting there. Going to be putting that on there. And then final piece of the parcel is going to be some pink salt. So I've been trying to track my salt intake a lot more. I've been having about 10 grams of salt a day, which might sound like a lot of salt, and you'd be right in saying it is a lot of salt, but salt isn't actually as bad for you as you may think it is. It helps with things like nutrient transport, and as long as you're having a good amount of potassium. So I've got my banana for some potassium. I've also reintroduced potatoes into my diet, and obviously I'm drinking a shit ton of water. I'm having about probably 3 of these a day, so 6 litres plus an extra bit of water on top of that from things like my pre-workout coffee, even my cream of rice. There's 400 millilitres of water in that. So even things like that. Gonna chuck all that on, gonna get it down me, and then I'll see you at the gym. So we are here in Irving's again for our lower session. On the cards today, we're going to start off with a wee warm-up, which is actually going to be a couple of exercises to failure before we do the strength work, which may sound a bit weird, but we're going to start off with adductors and then hamstring curl. So the adductors, just going to do 2 sets of that. Hamstring curl, going to do 2 sets of that. Both sets are going to be to failure on both exercises. Obviously when you're training legs, especially when you're doing something like a barbell squat, it's going to be quite taxing on the joints, so getting that blood into the joints before we actually start off into strength work. Hamstring curls, not going to take too much away from the barbell squat. I'm going to jump into my adductors now and I'll see you then. So why might you want to start off with an adductor in a session? Because the adductors are going to make up probably about 1/3 of your leg from the front. So if you're looking to grow bigger legs and you're looking to really maximize the look of your leg, then training adductors first in a session is going to allow you to get more stimulus to them. Again, like I said, it's going to be a really good warm-up for the adductor muscle, which is commonly injured. So you get that compounded effect of you're going to have bigger legs from the front because your adductors are going to be bigger, and you're going to prevent injury by getting blood into the area. One thing you'll really notice me do when I train my adductors is you'll see that pause and that fully lengthened. Again, the reason for that is just to control that change of direction. A lot of the time when you see adductor injuries, it's from people bouncing the weight out of the bottom position, out of this fully stretched position, where you're a lot more vulnerable to injury. So you'll see me, even in my warm-up sets, I'm making sure that I'm getting a nice pause in that lengthened position so that when I'm driving up, there's not as much stretch reflex on the adductor muscle and it's not going to be as prone to injury. So just watch out for that when I do my top set here. I got 82.5, which is about 4 away from the top stack. So got that for about 10 reps or 9 reps plus 1 forced rep last time. So going to see if we can get that for 10 reps today. So we can hit a wee bit of a PR here. Oh yeah. Match my reps. I'm not going to count that last one as a forced rep because I'm literally that far off of that full range of motion, so I'll still count that as a full rep. But match reps, which is pretty decent again. I'm 5 weeks out from my photo shoot, so I'm going to drop it off a wee bit, do a back off set, and then I think I'm going to do some abductors as well. So I'll do some abductors as well, and then I'll jump onto a hamstring curl and give that a bash. So we made it to the hamstring curls. So I didn't bother filming the abductor, but I just did a couple of lighter sets on those, so I didn't go all the way to failure just because I've never really trained my adductors before, or my abductors, not adductors. So I didn't really want to take those all the way to failure, just in case they were super sore tomorrow. But we've got the hamstring curl, so again, the reason I'm doing my hamstring curl, and you may think this is a very taxing exercise to do before squats, it's not really, because you think about your squat, you're not really using your hamstrings for your squat at all. So this is actually going to get the knee joint really warm, so it's actually going to be really useful for that. Again, helps with injury prevention and whatnot. So I've got a mat here, so if you're on a hamstring curl and you find that you really struggle to keep your arse into place, I just get a mat, I just fold it up, and then I slot that right under the leg pad here. And that is going to simply just help me push the leg pad even tighter. And then obviously that's going to help me lock my legs in a little bit more. You can also use a seat belt. You see the seat belt going around a lot. On this one, I used a band when I first used it, but there's not really any good place to anchor the band. So I put it on here, but this is obviously the lever that controls the seat. So I almost decapitated my knee, or kneecapped myself, don't know what the term would be. Almost took my knee off. Gonna crack on with some warm-ups though, gonna make sure that we are nice and ready for that top set. Again, whenever you're doing a hamstring curl, you want this pad to be on as tight as humanly possible. There's no sense in it being off the knee Avoiding duck feet as well, don't your feet out like this. Want to make sure your kneecap is facing upwards because obviously your knee's a hinge joint. It's not like a ball and socket like your shoulder is. So you want to make sure that the knees going in, or your legs traveling in the direction of the machine itself, which is obviously around the axis here. 1,000 pounds, I got a £100 warm up, and we are going to go up to 160 pounds on it. Again, you don't need to do a stupid amount of reps when you're warming up. 5 reps there is completely fine. So top set time, 160 on. So got 7 last week if I'm not mistaken. So I'm gonna aim for 8 reps this week, see what we can do. There we go. One rep up. Not quite a PR, I don't think, according to my Gravitas app, so I don't know what my PR was. I got 170 for 5. That was probably my PR, but we'll get back there. So next set, going to drop it off by about 10 pounds, and then I got 150 for 8, so we're going to try and go for 150 for 9. Whenever I'm resting, the main thing I'm actually looking at is not rest time, it's actually my heart rate. And essentially what I'm waiting for is my heart rate to come back down to a certain baseline level before I start my next set. So rather than using a timer, because a timer is going to be it's going to be dependent on the exercise. Some exercises, like I'm going to go into my squats, my heart rate might jack up all the way to 120, 130 beats per minute. Whereas something like this, which isn't as demanding, my heart rate might only go up to about 100, 110. And then what I'm waiting for is I'm waiting for my heart rate to come back down to maybe 70, 80. So I'm ready for my next set at that point. I might still rest a minimum of 2 minutes just to make sure that my muscles are actually recovered, because right now my hamstrings are definitely still feeling it from that first set there. I'm gonna have a wee bit more of a rest, and then we'll jump into my second set. So while I wait for a squat rack, it's actually quite busy, we're just gonna get my shit on. So equipment for leg day or squatting, you don't need that much equipment when you're training in general. Maybe for legs, you might want a pair of knee sleeves just to protect the knee joint a little bit more. Not necessary though, especially if you don't have knee issues already. Another thing you might look at, though, that's very valuable, is a pair of flat-soled shoes. So these shoes I've had since my powerlifting days, so I've had these for about probably 3 years. They look like I definitely need a new pair at this point. So at least go for the wash. But whenever you're training legs, especially when you're doing your squats, your deadlifts, your leg presses, anything that requires your feet to be in contact with something, flat-soled shoes, preferably with a very thin sole, are going to be mandatory. So they don't necessarily need to be something a bit goofy looking like these, right? But what you might want is a pair of Vans, a pair of Converse, even, right? And I would say this is pretty low down in the tier, a pair of not Panda Dunks, just Dunks in general. They can be okay for doing the job. But I'm going to get my knee sleeves on. I'll show you how to get knee sleeves on as well, because a lot of people, they struggle getting them on. Also, top tip when you're dieting and you need to track your steps and you have an Apple Watch, but you hate wearing it in the gym, I promise it's not a tag, right? But just wrap it around your ankle, and game changer. You can maybe get like an extra 1,000, 2,000 steps in the gym that you wouldn't normally be tracking. And obviously every step matters at the end of the day when you're dieting, especially when you're on 15,000 steps like myself. So I always put my Apple Watch on my ankle now when I'm training. Not on every exercise, obviously. When I'm doing my squats, I probably won't have it on my ankle because it'll be quite distracting, but when I do my pull sessions, when I do my upper sessions especially, and I'm wearing wrist straps and I'm wearing lifting straps as well, where Apple Watches can be a bit annoying to be wearing during those sort of sessions, I will put it on my ankle and it does the job, let's say that. I pull my socks all the way up just because it slides up easily on my socks. And then what I do is I fold them in half. So I pull them on my foot in half, slide them up my sock. Gets it to about halfway up my leg, so right where that sort of crease from folding them in half gets to my knee, that's where I pull up like that, and they're on perfectly, so I don't have to. It's a very easy way to get your knee sleeves on, especially if they're quite tight knee sleeves, like my knee sleeves. Honestly, you probably don't want, if your main goal is building muscle, you probably don't want the tightest knee sleeves because it's going to create more stretch reflex, which is just going to in turn make your compound pressing, your leg pressing movements just a bit easier, which isn't always a good thing, especially when you're trying to manage load and you're trying to get the most out of the exercise. But I'm going to stop yapping, I'm going to wait for these squat racks, and then I'll see when we're getting squatting. So it took us a minute, but we got the rack. So don't know what I'm going to go up to today. So low bar squat I've not done in a little while. So I did high bar last week. I did 100 for 8 and it was quite comfortable. It wasn't difficult really at all. So don't know what I can get with low bar. Typically I'm much stronger with low bar. So last time I did it, I was checking my numbers. I did about 170 kilograms. So 170 for a triple at around RPE 8.5. Don't think I'm going to quite get there today. Maybe if we're lucky we can get 140 if we're lucky. But we'll see, we'll warm up to it, see how it feels, and then obviously we'll take it from there. So I'm going to get a couple plates on this. I've already done the bar for about 10 reps, so I'm going to get a couple plates on this and see where we can go. So I'm going to throw the belt on for my second warm-up here. The reason being is I just want to get used to using the belt again because I've not used it in a while for squats. So before I do my top set, I want to make sure that I'm actually used to bracing into the belt. Wouldn't normally do this, but I think when you're looking to try and make things as consistent as possible within a session, something that you need to take in consideration, even something like using a belt is going to throw things off slightly. It's going to change the way that you squat, that you do the exercise. So I'm going to throw the belt on for 100. It's going to make it a little bit easier, especially if we're getting the bracing down properly with the belt. So, but I don't think it's been a few weeks since I've worn my belt at all, even for things like deadlifts. So going to see what we can do. Gonna chuck wrist wraps on for this. So 120, I've not touched 120 in months, so don't know how this is gonna go, but should be a comfortable triple for me. Going to use wrist wraps just to take some strain off the wrists, obviously, because low bar for me personally can be quite taxing on my upper body, on my elbows, on my shoulders. So using wrist wraps just helps me alleviate some of that pressure. Right, let's see what we can get for a triple here, see how difficult this is, and it's going to dictate where we go from there. That was very easy. I'm not gonna lie, I think we might be onto something here. Compared to the past as well, where I was getting a lot of hip pain from my barbell back squat, I'm actually not getting any hip pain at all there, so. So 140 for a triple. Did not think I'd be doing that today. Give that maybe a 7. It wasn't ridiculously hard. It was definitely hard, but it wasn't ridiculously hard. So I would give that a 7. So that's pretty cool. Because again, I can't remember the last time I squatted 140. The leg strength has definitely held up. I've still been training legs, so the strength has definitely held up, but didn't clip the rack on the way out this time as well. So that was a benefit. Gonna rest up a wee bit. And allow that heart rate to come back down, allow me to gather myself again, and then we'll have another crack at that, see if we can get another triple. So that is low bar squats complete. I got 140 for a triple for my first set. About RPE 7.5, I redacted that. I put it up to 7.5 just because I don't know if I could have gotten another 3. I think 2, could have probably got another 2. Don't know if I could got another 3. So I did 140 for a second set. It moved horribly. I got 3 reps still, but they were tough. They were like, I would say probably an RPE 9. So I backed it off to about 120. 2 sets of 120, and that actually moved really well. Moved how it should. I was getting a little bit of hip pain, so that's one of the reasons I backed off so much to 120 from 140. But it is what it is. Sometimes that pain just crops up, and I just have to be smart about it. It was RPE 7 anyway, so it wasn't anything too difficult. Moving now on to high bar squat. So a high bar squat is going to be similar to something like a hack squat or a pendulum squat, where you're more upright, you get less hip flexion, and you're able to get your knee over your quads a bit more, or your knee over your quads, your knee over your toe a bit more. And that is going to help you ultimately with getting more hip flexion, getting more moment arm with the knee and the quad essentially from the bar, which is going to make the squat more quad dominant. So it's a really good developer for the quads. And honestly, if your only goal is muscle growth and you're not that bothered about the amount of weight that you can lift, or you're just wanting to build bigger legs, and you really enjoy doing barbell squats, I would actually just recommend doing high bar squat rather than doing the low bar squat, because the low bar squat is high risk, high reward, whereas a high bar squat is definitely going to be more low risk, high reward. So I'm going to crack on, get into it. I'm not going to need to do any warm-ups, I'm just going to jump straight into it. Got 100 for 8 last time, or last week. Obviously that was without doing 4 sets of low bar squat beforehand, so we'll see how 100 moves today, but the rep range is 6 to 10, so if we can get anywhere in that rep range, then ideal. So gonna crack on, gonna film this, and then obviously I'll see you for the next exercise. So you can see there too, I decided to not use any equipment for that, so no belt, no wrist straps, and that is just to limit the load. Still use my knee sleeves because can't be arsed taking them off, and they're just providing more support and warmth around my knee joint, so it's always good to have that. But matched 8 reps there, so quite happy with that, especially after doing 4 sets of squats before that. So let's go. So wasn't actually planning to do this, but we're going to do Romanian deadlifts. So I was actually planning to do the 45-degree hip extension, bringing the barbell over there. But to be honest with you, I'm already in the squat rack, I've got the barbell here. I don't need to use 10 kg plates to load up the bar and get good range of motion. I can just use the 20s. So just going to do RDLs. Going to be a very similar movement anyway. I reckon I'm probably going to move a very similar amount of load as well. On the 45-degree hip extensions, I was moving around, I think 80 kg. So on RDLs, the last time I RDL'd, I moved 160 for 4 reps. Can't remember anything about that set. So it was about 3 months ago. So I can't remember if that was with a belt, if it was beltless, or where it was in my session. So it's going to be a bit of an interesting one. I think it was on a pull day. So if it was on a pull day, there's going to have obviously been a lot less loading through the legs. And so I'm probably going to be stronger. I would have probably been stronger in that session than this session. But this is something that you got to learn within your training. And there's always exercise substitutions. If you can't be arsed doing one exercise one day, or a machine's busy, or you're injured and you can't do a particular variation of exercise, aggravates an injury, you've got to break your training down into movement patterns. So an RDL is a hip hinge, a 45-degree extension is a hip hinge, a stiff leg deadlift, a barbell leg, a conventional deadlift, a good morning, they're all hip hinges, right? And obviously they've all got varying degrees of muscle activation. For example, a conventional deadlift where you're bending your knees a lot more is going to get a lot more quad involved, whereas a 45-degree hip extension where the loading is going to be most difficult in the mid-range where the hamstrings get involved, and the RDL is actually going to be more of a glute and an adductor exercise more than anything, but it's still going to get plenty of hamstring. That's why I'm subbing it in, right? So it's not a perfect substitution, but you can do this with all your training, like a chest press. If I give a client a barbell bench press and they're not connecting very well with it, then I don't have an issue with subbing that out and giving them a dumbbell bench press or a machine press, as long as it's a flat bench press for a flat dumbbell. It's not a flat bench press for an incline bench press, for example. So, gonna crack on, get into this. Let's see what we can get on this. I'm usually a very strong, I guess you would say, puller, hinger, RDLer. One of the varieties there, but we'll crack on with this. We'll see what we can get. It'll be in a minute. I might honestly put my joggies on for this because the bar gets caught on my skin. So I'm going to get my joggies back on to do my RDLs. Made me look a bit bigger than having these pin legs for my deadlifts. $100 feeling very, very easy. Probably go 140. See what we can get with that. Yeah. Ooh. We'll fucking do that. Woo. And we are on to the final movement of the session, finally, leg extensions. Oh man, I'm absolutely ruined after those RDLs. I think I hit an axial load PR. Usually what I'll do on this is I'll actually add a plate to the stack because it's quite a light machine. but that's usually when I do it second, third exercise in. I think I used to do it cable crunches, and then I did adductor, and then I would do my leg extension. So that would mean I could add another plate onto it. So I would be adding a 10, 15 kilogram plate onto it. But obviously, since I'm doing it at the end of a session, I can't do that. I did a feeler set with half the stack, or 3/4 of the stack, I think. And it did feel quite heavy. So still going for 6 to 10 reps here. Still relatively heavy or for what most people would do on a leg extension. And the pure reason is it doesn't matter how many reps you do. People think that there's a special thing about rep ranges where there's not really. The only thing that matters is you're within 0 to, I would say, 2, technically 5 reps in reserve. But I would say 0 and 2 reps in reserve is a really good rule of thumb to stick by. So as long as you're within that rep range, or as long as you're within that, you're putting in that effort range, then, or intensity, then it doesn't actually matter how many reps that you do. So I always bias towards a bit lower reps because it just takes less time. You're in the set less time, and then that's less perception of fatigue, which is going to allow you to actually perform better within that set. Say I did like a set of 30 on leg extensions. A, the amount of muscle damage I'd cause would be ridiculous, and B, it would take me a lot to get to true failure on a set of 30 compared to true failure on a set of 10, right? So I've still got the stack on. We're still going to try and see how many we can do, just this full stack. My ego's not going to give up here, even if that's 2, 3 reps. Fuck it. So we're going to see that. And then we will back off and we will do something a little bit more lightweight. Usually I would actually put a band across my lap as well to pull my hip into the seat a little bit more, but because I'm just not using as much load, I don't feel like I'll need to do that because it's relative to your body weight, right? But we'll crack on. Get the tunes back on because AirPods died, funnily enough. Been in here about 2.5 hours so far. So I'd like to get this over with, but we've only got like 2 sets on this anyway, so it's going to be over soon enough. Full stack for 6 at the back end of my session. I'm definitely going to need to invest in a gym pin when it comes to my off season after this full shoot prep. Because to be 5 weeks out and doing a full stack at the end of a session like this, I think it's a bit silly. So probably going to do 1 pin off and then we'll call it there. If you're wondering why I'm using the mat, by the way, you'll notice that if you put the mat in, it increases that knee bend. So you're getting a little bit more stretch and a little bit more range of motion out of the exercise. So if you're on a leg extension machine and you want to make it harder, or you want to increase the amount of range of motion you have on the machine, all you need to do is get a foam on like a mat like this, or you can get just a regular mat, and that'll work really well. And you can obviously just fold the mat, same as what I did on that hamstring curl. You can just fold it, pop it here, and then you'll actually get a lot more range of motion out of the movement. Especially useful for any leg extension that's not a prime leg extension, because I find that's the only one that's actually got that range of motion that you want. So yeah, top tip. Dusted. And we're finishing the day just as we started, back in the kitchen with a bowl of cream of rice. So that's what we've got for post-workout. It's literally the exact same as my first bowl of cream of rice, so 100 cream of rice, 150 gram of berries, a banana, 10 gram of dark chocolate, and 30 gram of whey with some of that 0 calorie or that very low calorie syrup, and cinnamon banged on. Camera's about to die, so I'll get going, but if you did enjoy this video, then obviously do the usual, subscribe, comment, all that good stuff. If you've got any questions about my training split, because obviously it is a little bit different, that was a bit of a different session to something that I would normally do. I might even put my full session details up at the end here, so you can actually see the breakdown on the screen. If you've got any questions about that, then just obviously let me know. But I'm gonna sign off now, guys. So again, comment, subscribe, and I'll catch you next time.